Hello, everyone, and welcome to this live webinar, actual live demo of Autonomy AI and Fei Studio. And today I'm very excited to launch our first live demo ever with one of the most interesting, most exciting features and products we've ever launched, Design Mode. Design Mode is intended to close the gap between your design and what actually ships into productions. My name is Adir Ben-Yehuda. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Autonomy AI. And today we're going to talk exactly about how we can help companies do this. But first of all, for those of you who are not familiar with Autonomy AI and our product Fei Studio, Autonomy AI has been around for the last couple of years. Today we have over 150 companies that are working and changing the workflows that they have, enabling product managers, UX and UI designers to ship directly inside the code base. We developed a technology that can easily understand an existing code base, analyze it, understand the design system, the component sets, the rules, and enable non-technical or semi-technical individuals to go all the way to a pull request, accelerating today, as I mentioned, 150 companies and enabling them to achieve more of their intent and achieve more of their road. So without further ado, let's start and dive into things. I'm going to show a few slides just to set the stage, and then we can jump into a few live examples of the demo and what the product and Autonomy AI can actually do. So you all probably work with one of these two engineers, right? Like you have the favorite ones. They just get it. They read the Figma, they ask the right questions, and they try to ship something that looks like your intent and what you actually wanted. The other ones, they're somewhere in there, right? Like they have the design is there somewhere behind the cosplay, anywhere in between. Those are like the two archetypes when you try to hand over a task, a Figma, a point that you wanted to change within the flow, impact somewhere in the roadmap. And usually get one of those three emotions, reactions overall. The first one is your product looks almost exactly like you designed it. The second one is your product looks somewhat like you designed it. And the third one, which is I think the worst of all, is you hate how your product looks because it isn't how you actually design it and how you actually want to build it. It doesn't matter what emotion you feel from that perspective. At the end of the day, what we're all used to when we talk with many companies and many organizations, at the end of the day, the result is every time is that's how you designed your Figma, like this beautiful dragon. And you get this in production, which is a nice, very cute puppy, but not a dragon, definitely, for sure. Worst thing is, like, I think we've all just learned to live with it. I've been working with many companies in my past, and every single time we had intent, we wanted to do something. At the end of the day, the way it was actually established within the product itself didn't actually look similar. And the main problem that we saw across the board is not that the engineering side of things doesn't want to do things right. They understand what happens within the design itself. The main problem is the handoff. When you have a designer, when you have a UX UI designer who's getting a task, who's generating a Figma, they have an intent in mind. And this intent losing all the right parts or the important parts for it when you do the handoff itself. And handoffs are effectively the death of your design, the death of how you actually want to actually do things within the product itself. So within design mode and within Fei Studio, we didn't try to fix the handoff. It's useless. Basically deleted it, right? Platform solution that works inside your real existing product. With your design system, with your components, you get the result you intended to have right out of the gate. What is it important right now? It's important right now because you have the ability to actually because everything right now is moving super fast. There is no time for back and forth. Everything needs to be now, not tomorrow, and not in 2 days, not even in a few hours. You need to make an impact right now, and that's what Fei Studio enables you to do. So without further ado, let's jump into the demo itself. It's a live demo, so you'll excuse me for any glitches. We're trying to make sure to have it as authentic as possible from that perspective, so you can get the right impact. Let's start with the basic premise of what we have. So this is Fei Studio. This is the home interface, a very like known interface that you've probably seen with a bunch of products if you played around with them, right? Like probably seen it on Lovable or Bold and all those other solutions. The main thing that we've changed within the product itself and the main impact or the secret sauce is the ability to actually connect your existing repo. So it doesn't matter what repository you actually work with, you can actually connect your Git provider within the solution itself. Once you do this initial connection, we actually can analyze the entire existing code base. So within 15 to 16 minutes, without any need of technical knowledge or understanding within the code, we will analyze everything from CSS standards all the way to the project architecture. We'll analyze all the components library within the code itself. We'll understand how the code is being compiled and rendered. We even have a native integration to Storybook or other rendering integrations you have to make sure your design system is A, enforced, but B, is also very much up to date from that perspective. We get a lot of questions about, well, what's the difference between this and Lovable or Bolt? Well, first of all, the ability to actually create a solution that is is shippable and can go all the way to a pull request. That's a key part of what we enable. Also, what's the difference between this and Cloud Code or Codex or Cursor for that matter? The ability to actually have a reliable, consistent way that enforces all the standards on your code base and enable non-technical individuals without technical knowledge to actually ship and iterate on the existing code base. That's a key part of what AutonomyAI and Fei Studio can enable on the product itself. Now, let's talk a little bit about like what can be done and what can be achieved right out of the gate. So we have this concept of tasks. This is a request from the product itself that you can ask. You can see here I have no task, but when we go into the demo, I'll show you a bunch of other tasks and it will be accumulated on the left side of the screen itself. And once you decide to build a new task, you have the options to do one or a few other options there. You can either generate a new task, meaning you can generate a new flow, a new component, a new screen. You can update an existing screen, call your existing screens, call your existing flows and your existing components, and essentially render them in a visual view. And we're going to see this in a second. All the iterations have been done in real time. The input could be anything from a short text to a long PRD or even ROI-driven requests and results. You have the option to plan a feature. You have the option to build a new feature just out of the gate without planning, or you have the option to find an existing component or existing screen and do everything end to end. You can stay also on auto mode. Fei Studio will understand the request you had and will decide on the exact flow that you can generate. The other input is not just textual. It could be also image-based for that matter. You can see here I added the image from our webinar today. It could be Figma that you can generate here and add the Figma here or using our plugin. I'm going to show you this in a second as well. Or it can even be Cloud Design. You can choose a Cloud Design zip file, add it here. And the point here is not just doing everything like with a small look and feel of your product, but actually create and will generate everything on your existing code base. But the input is very much flexible from that aspect. Let's jump into the first task. Let's assume you have a design, you have a new design, and it's all based on Figma, and you want to generate this design as quick as possible to make sure that you can do a proper handoff to engineering without losing any part of the intent from that perspective. So I went to Figma itself, and I got this design that I have ready before our conversation. All you need to do is use Fei Studio Figma plugin. The Figma plugin will recognize the element that you want to actually generate, will recognize the project that you want to work with in the product itself, and with one click of a button, it will enable to create a task. It will move the task itself inside your project itself, and you can see here what will happen. It will analyze it, recognize the Figma. I'll refresh the page so you'll be able to see. It will all give you a live view and full render of what happened on the code. So it will take the Figma itself, translate this to your components, to your design system, to your code base, understand the full validations of your code base itself, so you can actually create an impact. And you can see that I can move in between what was generated in the flow and play around with the different elements. Now, let's say I want to do small tweaks and I want to change a few elements on the page itself. All that you need to do from that aspect is just go ahead and click the option for edit, and this will get you to design mode. It will enable you to change essentially every single element on the page. You can choose one element, you can choose multiple elements from the page itself, and then you have the full suite of design that you can play around with. So everything from padding, instead of going back to Figma, you can actually generate it here. You can actually play around with the font size and make sure that the font size itself will be as not going to design itself, but align with the different fonts. Let's maybe do it a little bit nicer. 13, I think, will be the best one. And you can even go ahead and change the text color for all those options very quickly, or maybe just the text. Once you have everything here and everything is accumulated, all that needs to be done is just click go. Fei Studio will start generating and executing on the result itself end to end without you need to worry. Once you're done with everything, you can actually click send to dev and push it into a pull request. That's one impact. Design to code with the Figma, a specific Figma you have. And then once you have the Figma within the design, the full iterations. You're done with this. Maybe you want to update your existing Figma. You can actually click share and it will re-update the Figma itself. So everything could be up to date and fully on track. That's one task, but I want to get a little bit more interesting from the task and maybe not give some specific tasks, or maybe just plan ahead and generate new tasks all completely. So in this case, imagine you finish a meeting and you have a big problem within this task page because you don't see anyone engaging with it. So, and the KPI that you've been tasked with is, okay, how can we increase by 30% the people that are actually using the task management options that we have in the application itself? In this specific use case, in the demo, I just put in a KPI-driven request. I didn't put in a product description. I didn't put in any image go along with it or any visual aid, but the ability for Fei and Fei Studio specifically and the design mode is to understand semantically what the product is doing, really understand the narrative of what the product needs to do, really understand the users, really understand how the product is iterating and what other benchmarks we see in the market itself. So it's even good enough to put this like ROI-driven, KPI-driven metric, a request for us to help you generate a result that could be useful. In this specific case as well, I also chose to do a planning option. By just mentioning, can you help me plan a solution? Fei Studio understood that you want to plan something and you don't just want to go and jump right into the features itself. So in this case, I decided to show you the first option. Great. We planned something. Now we can actually go ahead and have a list of what needs to be planned, right? So this is the solution direction that Fei Studio basically wanted to go with and suggested, and a few options were available here. So first of all is improving discoverability, then the task history list from that perspective, and you can choose or basically disregard few elements of whatever you want to build, and you can play around with this, but it goes real deep, right? From that aspect, it goes to the way of like, who are the targeted users you want to activate, right? So it's either users that never tried tasks yet, we understand again semantically what the product is doing, users who tried the task once but didn't want to come back, or active users. I chose to go all of that above. Let's make it fun from that perspective. And then understanding also what's the scope of the effort. So how deep do you want to go from that perspective? Do you want a whole full feature that will be generated, or you just want to build a new components, modifications, maybe some pop-up on the existing flows? I chose to go with the medium. And then once I'm done with this, you obviously have a free text option. But once I've done with that, I can go ahead to start planning. I'll go to the next step. I want to make sure everything is going to be prepared ahead of time. The result you will get out of this is this full spec doc, a full spec doc that can understand the narrative, understand the product itself, and then understand exactly what we want to build, why it matters from that perspective, what are the functional requirements. I know you all see that AI can spit out a lot of text and a lot of words. From that perspective, what matters here is when you go deep within the flow itself, and when you go ahead and understand like the entire flow itself, at the end of the day, you can see it's fully contextual to your ROI or your KPI and what's important for what you just described. I'll go ahead and click on making sure that I can see the end result, which was rendered ahead of this call. And you can see fully rendered result. This is a pop-up because we asked to do a medium flow. And you can see all the elements here based on recent task page. But now we generate a few variants on the flow itself. So if I go to variants, I can go ahead and click on the variants themselves and make sure that like we can see what happens with existing tests. We can see the empty stages, the empty state as well being rendered in front of us. So you can see how the user is generated, or maybe you can even engaging, or maybe you can even see the welcome banner from that aspect, right? So everything here is fully break down to different variants. The reason this is important is because you have the ability to actually choose different elements on the page, right? So maybe you're fine with the empty state, but you don't like the first welcome banner from that matter. So all you need to do is just choose the right elements on the flow and say, hey, I just want to change this part of the variance itself. What Fei Studio would do is effectively change all the flow itself, change the welcome banner, and go ahead and start activating on the task itself. We'll get back to it in a few minutes. But that's the aspect of, okay, we had a test that we've planned ahead of time, an ROI-driven test, the ability to decompose the task itself based on the requirements of the organization, show you a full explanation of what we're going to build, and then actually execute on this task itself in a very granular way with few stages at the end of the day. Once you're done with this, again, you have the ability to actually send it to developers as a full pull request that is ready. Now, let's go to another explanation. In this case, I didn't want to put an ROI-driven metric. I actually wanted to build a net new flow and a net new screen from my place. So I went ahead and said, hey, can you build a new ROI flow so users can measure effectiveness over time of closing tasks? Make sure it has mock data and full tracking. Make sure it's part of a full page within the app itself. What Fei Studio went ahead and did is generate this entire new flow, and it has the ability to see here weekly, monthly view. Everything is fully rendered with all the mock data and all the relevant explanations and all the relevant results, even to the level that you can see a full key insights. From that point on, you can start like iterating and playing around with the different variants and the different styling. No need to go back to Figma, no need to generate everything on Figma itself. All you need to do is just like click around on the elements and change every single element you want on the page. It will save everything, every single change here as a full list of what was changed. In this case, what I decided to do to show you here is actually show you how once we're done with this, I clicked send to them and generated a full pull request that is ready for developer. I'll open the pull request and you can see that I've built a new ROI flow dashboard. It's been created by me. It's a full pull request that engineering can see what change, what file change, and the overall flow, how they should test it end to end from that aspect. Now, let's go to another example. In this example, I actually decided that I don't want to do anything net new. I wanted to make sure that we have a single component within our flow that called the UX UI test that we've talked about in the last 20 minutes. And I decided to call this component because I want to do a few changes and a few iterations. Instead of going back and forth with engineering and playing around with Figma and build the different iterations, and then going back to product and understanding the requirements, I want to do everything soup to nuts here on my existing product. So I asked Fei Studio, find the task list page. Once I got this, you can see it rendered the full task list page that you saw before now this is without the Figma, but it looks exactly the same from that aspect. And I asked, great, can you now add a Kanban view? What Fei Studio did is decompose the flow itself or decompose the request, the task, and actually added a Kanban view to the board. So I like to give like very short explanations. If I were a PM in your organization, I'd probably get fired within a few minutes. But here, Fei Studio understood exactly where the Kanban should be, where the Kanban should live. And you can see generated all the mock data and used all the mock data completely end to end. So you can play around with it and understand and have a full viable understanding of what's going on within the product. Now, I wanted to make it a little bit more funky because I got another request and I want to make it a little bit more rich. Let's add a Gantt view to it. And by the way, the Kanban items are not draggable. So let's also make sure that we can address this. Within really a couple of minutes, Fei Studio was able to understand what the request is, add the Gantt view, and make sure everything is fully aligned. You can see the Kanban option, it's fully draggable. If I'll move anything within the Kanban itself, I can play around with it, and then it will actually impact the Gantt view at the end of the flow itself. Now, I said, great, but there are a lot of items here. So we need to make sure that we can build an order. So you are a UX expert, please update this page according to the best practice. What is the best practice? How users actually behaved on my product up to now. I want to get some ideas. I want to get some ideation with the flow itself. All I need to do here is just ask the request. You build a tech spec doc, planning mode, because we wanted to plan this feature, and we'll generate within a few minutes a whole new look and feel to the product itself. But the important part is it didn't just make everything a little bit more cleaner, the fonts a little bit more nicer. The important part is the understanding of what UX means from that perspective, right? So there are a lot of items here. We need to add search and organizations in the form of filters and priorities, but the option to actually change anything, change everything. Obviously, the cleaner visual design, a smart summary bar that will help you understand how many tasks you have and what needs to be done there. Full accessibility and understand how accessibility should be approached here, and a better feedback. So the Kanban was a little bit glitchy at the beginning, so you can actually see how the Kanban now actually moves better between the tests themselves. So that's like the ability for Fei Studio to actually play around with the different elements. And guess what? Not only that, we have the ability to render everything, understand, and from a UX perspective, see how many users actually used mobile and using mobile devices and make all the design mobile friendly. So now you can actually go ahead and test it from a mobile perspective and see how everything would look on mobile and play around with it. So not just mobile, tablet, maybe a smaller desktop screen, all in all end to end. At the end of the flow itself, I can actually go ahead and generate a PR. In this case, I generated the PR. It will go directly to engineering, but I can actually update and change a bunch of things if I want to and click back to update a PR. This basically collapses the challenge that you have with the handoffs between your intent all the way to engineering. You can generate everything here on one aspect, see everything visually, have a full operating system that can work on your code base, play around with it. But the end result, instead of going and showing a prototype to engineering that is disconnected or maybe just a Figma, you can actually ship engineering a pull request that they can actually use and go ahead and pull into production. Some simple stat, we have today over 5,000 pull requests on a weekly basis on Fei Studio, 86% approval rate. Why? Because we heavily reuse your existing component. We heavily reuse your code base. I want to leave I think the best to last, and that's like the new feature we released with Fei Studio and with design mode is the ability to go ahead to a live preview. So this is Excelidro, one of the biggest open projects in the world. And what we can do here is effectively enable this full mode. You can actually render your entire application now with Fei Studio. Everything is connected very easily. And you can see here, I actually rendered Excelidro, and I can start playing around with the different features within Excelidro itself and play around with the flow. I can even go ahead and play around with the feature and the product. Why does it matter? Because instead of doing things in an isolated way, as a UX designer, as a product designer, you can actually review your entire product. You can actually start adding changes on the flow itself as they go and see how they incorporate within the product, with the full product itself. You can be in the specific screen and say, hey, can I add another state to it before the user actually clicks save to PNG? It's very easy to connect everything. And from that moment on, you have a full view and a full understanding of what's going on. One option of this is Excelidro. I can go ahead to, and maybe a little bit more. I took the Dynatrace project from their website. We actually connected everything directly there, and you can go even to more complex granular products than just Excelidro and see the entire flow end to end from that perspective. So that's in an overall view of what can be done and what can be achieved. Happy to answer any questions. I know we have one that someone asked here. Vibe coding to my production environment, risky. I agree completely. I think vibe coding is risky. This is not vibe coding. Vibe coding is disconnected from your coding standards. It's disconnected from your code base. It has no guardrails. It will push different folders and different files that you're not aware of. That's definitely the case within vibe coding. Vibe coding. What we've built with AutonomyAI and Fei Studio is the understanding of the existing code base with the right guardrails, using your existing components, seeing everything ahead of time in a clear visual feedback that you can actually play around and engage with. And then when it goes down to a pull request, that's an impact that you can make within the organization itself. Happy to answer any other questions if anyone has. Great. Thank you so much. And before we go, let's just do a quick summary here of what we explored today. How quick can you get on board with design mode and connect your existing repo? How to remove the friction of your backlog, take backlog items that you had for a long time and actually execute them very quickly. How to create easily new design that you own from just text or maybe Figma, and how to plan the features directly within your existing code base. For those of you who joined the webinar today, we have a few tens or maybe over 100 today. You can book a demo with us, see the product itself. If you can scan this code, we'll send it to you after also the call. You get a first 100 tests for free. It's the equivalent of $400 and in terms of this promotion. So go ahead. We would love to talk with you. Thank you everyone for joining us, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in our next demo thing. Thank you.